But I also think that personally for me, one of the things that has made rest and ease for me has been feeling like I no longer have to prove or perform. I moved to Zambia 10 years ago, almost 11. For one reason or the other, I almost always felt like I had to prove myself. I had to perform to stand out. So I'm literally moving into a new country. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows what I've done before. I'm a rookie. I'm young. I was 24 when I moved to Zambia. I was just new, like literally new to the market. Nobody knew me. I said yes to everything, right? I was building. I was starting from the start. People would be like, Taffy, can you? And I'd be like, yes. Taffy, yes. You know, I said yes to everything because, to your point, I think we've become so used to showing the things that we have done that we don't catch up with ourselves, right? Because I do a thing, I put it on social media, people like it, but some people don't like it, and we notice that some people didn't like it, and then we begin to question it.
Yes,
right? Like we are not sitting still and recognizing what we have done because we are so excited to post it online.
Yeah.
But you know what that does is like it's a quick dopamine rush. The times that we take stock of who we have become in our lives, we move differently because we now know who we are.
I agree.
Right? I've had times, like I was saying to you, I've had so many times that I've had to sit with myself and say, Taffy, this is who you now are. And you can chill.
You are in for a treat.
Welcome to the Living in Fullness podcast with Naki. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Living in Fullness podcast. I am your host, Naki Hlomayi, and I'm excited that we have you here today. I want to say I absolutely love you guys. Thank you so much for subscribing, liking, and sharing. If it's your first time here, this place is where you get real life stories, experiences of purpose, of growth, people sharing their real life experiences. And we've had people from so many different countries because we believe for you to live a holistic life, you need a great perspective of what other people are doing and how they're coming through. So I'm really excited about my guest today. I'm so excited because she is a productivity coach. She is a consultant who not only helps individuals and corporates to realize their true potential, but is willing to ensure that people actually realize how they can turn those dreams and those goals and the visions into reality. And she'll give us a true practical perspective of how we can do that. Help me in welcoming the amazing Tafadzwa Bete Sasa.
That's a very kind introduction.
You're amazing.
Thank you.
So I've listened to you speak. I'm going to start with that. And as the last one I was actually listening to it was with my husband, and I was like, the way she speaks with so much ease. It was on TED. I think it was on TED. And I was like, she speaks with so much ease. And then you gave us this practical example. And I'm like, this is what people need. Because I do not enjoy listening to motivational speakers. I'm going to say it.
No.
But if it's practical, I will stick to it. And that's who you are. How are you doing?
I am well. I'm very well. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much for coming. And I'm excited to have you here. But before we get into the episode, we're going to have some icebreakers.
Okay. I'm laughing because as a facilitator, I never start a workshop without icebreakers. But then when somebody else is like icebreakers, I'm like, ooh. But okay, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, it's quick ones.
Okay.
Just you give me top 3 of the word or words I give you.
Okay.
You have to state the top 3 that come to your head.
Cool.
Ready?
Yes.
Okay. Books.
So am I giving my top 3 books or the 3 words that come to my mind?
Top 3 books.
The Shack, The Slight Edge, and Honey and Spice.
Nice. Do you read a lot?
I do read a lot, but recently I've actually been reading a lot more fiction. Really? I am actually currently reading a fiction book called The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. So,
that sounds interesting. Something I'll probably read. So do you read like any genre? Like you're not specific?
Well, so you see, the thing is, because of my line of work, I read a lot for work, right? Because I'm helping individuals, I'm helping corporate organizations. So I do a lot of reading for work. I'm sort of like a knowledge worker, if I can put it like that.
Yeah.
And what I tended to find was that at some point, because I was reading so much for work, I didn't like reading anything else then felt like work. So what I've now told myself is, in my calendar, I have what I call learning hours during my workday, which is when I do a lot of like my work related reading. And then outside of work, I'm just like, I'm going to read fiction, or like if there's like a book that's serious, but that's not related to my work, I can also try to read it. But yeah.
We clearly have a productivity coach here. Wow. Mentors.
Ooh.
They're all going to come for you now.
Exactly, right? Exactly. Because now I'm like, ooh, people are going to catch feelings. I think the first disclaimer is just really, I think that I'm the poster child of the idea that if I've seen further than others, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. So at any point in my life, anything that I've ever done, I've always had mentors. So that's why I'm struggling, because literally when I look back at all the stages of my life, I've been well mentored. But in this season of my life, I have somebody called Titi Mutendi. Titi has been mentoring me since I was 17, 18. And I love our mentorship because it takes on so many different shapes and forms. Linda Kasonde, she has also really been one of those people who, you know, like when things are happening, I go to her and we have conversations and I come back. And I also have a friend of mine who is really, she's a friend. But she's also so smart. And like, I'm like, Sila, let's have coffee. And then I come out and I'm like, that's exactly what I needed. So those three are the ones right on the top of my mind. But I'm struggling because I go to so many people when I need mentorship. But for now, it would be Titi, Linda, and Sila.
I love it. I love the one you mentioned where the person is your friend. And then I love it a lot. I have it with my sisters. I have it with my friends where you're just going there to have a normal discussion. Nothing technical, nothing too hectic. But somehow that conversation turns into a lot of light bulb moments where you're like, oh, I actually never thought about this. And you come out so whole. I love it. The importance of mentors and the right circles. Okay, let's go. Destination countries.
Singapore. Japan, but I want to go to Japan with my son, my oldest son. It's a trip that we're planning together. And maybe Bali. Yes.
I haven't been to all three.
Really?
Nuh-uh.
I've been to Japan before.
I haven't been.
But yeah, those three. Singapore, I want to do Singapore with my husband. I want to do Japan with my eldest son. Bali would probably be, and my husband won't like this, but I probably want to do Bali as a solo trip.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Yes. We're going to clip this just for him.
We're going to go together at some point, baby. But I also want to experience Bali by myself.
I love it. Yeah. Top 3 things you love about your husband.
Oh, Tatenda. He has a stupid sense of humor. He says the darndest things. And like, if you've ever met my husband, he's such a serious person. He's like one of those people, right? And he says things to me that I'm like, who would ever believe me if I say this is what you are? So that's number 1. He has the craziest sense of humor. Secondly, he's literally my best friend. I've known T for 18 years now.
Yeah.
And we've gone through a lot of life together. So, and he's also like one of those people who I get stuff, I want to tell stuff to him. And he's also such a great dad to our kids. Like, such, just so present, so kind, so patient. I look at him having conversations with my son, and I feel like sometimes my son gets it twisted, because then like his father says something silly to him and he says silly. I'm like, excuse me, that's your dad. And then he's like, and the father doesn't believe it. Right? So like his sense of humor, he's my friend, and he's such a great dad.
I love that. I mean, I've seen the sides of him where you're saying he's very professional.
Yes.
And
yes.
definitely your best friend, because I
Yes.
remember he used to do like some of my photo shoots when I was in Zambia. And one, he'd always speak about his wife. Two, like he's very, like he takes his job very seriously,
Yes.
even time-wise. When you
Yes.
agree to a time,
No,
he's
he's-
there in time. And then there's me. I'm just like, oh my goodness, who's going to be there in time? But I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
No.
The last one, what are the top 3 things that you do in the morning?
As a productivity coach, you're putting me on the spot because I'm also not a morning person. But like, firstly, I have to talk myself into getting out of bed.
Yeah.
Because I love sleep. I'm not a morning person. The only reason I don't snooze alarms is because I don't have an alarm.
Oh,
But when I have it, I definitely snooze my alarm. Then I do like to spend a little bit of time just by myself before I start interacting with people. And I usually use that time to check in with myself, to just be like, okay, I have this thing that I like to do where I literally say to myself the day of the week. So
Yeah.
it'd probably be like, today is Wednesday, 25th of September, 2024. I am in Johannesburg, South Africa. And I think for me, that's a good way of rooting myself either into the week of like, okay, it's now a Wednesday. It means we've gone through, it's the 25th, which means like we've gone through so many parts of the month and we have the month coming in. It's September, which means we've gone through so many months of the year and we are approaching the end of the year. Rooting myself in where I'm at, right? So I like to bring myself into the day like that. Then now more recently, because of the baby, most times my days start because he discovers that I'm there and he comes and he's doing this little giggly thing and he comes and we bond and we spend some time together. So snooze the alarm or negotiate with myself to wake up and get out of the bed, then center myself into the day. And now a lot of it starts with the baby. So
I love it. It sounds like a productive morning to me.
in ways, yes. I feel like in ways, yes, right?
Yeah.
Because it's also, I think it's a season that I'm in. Like maybe if you meet me 3 years from now, the baby won't be, a significant part of my mornings because he'll have his own little life. I'll still be doing the grounding, but also depending on where I will be work-wise, I might need to have much more hectic, structured, earlier days. But in this particular season of my life, I do a lot more slower, not so early mornings.
I love it.
Yeah.
So for people that don't know who Taffy is, who are you? What exactly do you do? What is a productivity coach?
I saw something today which I loved, and I said, I feel like this is such a good summary of me. I'm a sleepy girl with a busy life.
Oh, wow. Tell me more.
That's what I am. You see, I help people to be more productive, but I'm also of the firm belief that a lot of us are gifted and work in seasons where we have a level of struggle, right? And I sometimes joke and I say, when I share my perspective of procrastination, people are like, that's a very interesting approach to it. And I'm like, well, I have a lot of hours of field work where I've been procrastinating and trying to figure it out myself. The reason I'm so good at productivity is because my affinity for non-productivity is unmatched.
Wow.
So a lot of the things that I share with other people are what I need and what I do to keep myself productive. We were talking earlier on when we started that, you love being productive, but you have to catch yourself to make sure that you're not, you said you love being busy.
Yeah.
You have to catch yourself to make sure that you're not just being busy, but not productive.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big part of my life. I don't know if it's still the thing, but I think at some point on my Instagram bio, I just said, you know what? I'm just extracting my dream life from the shackles of procrastination and not wanting to do things. So me being a productivity coach is me really sharing the things that have worked for me and continue to work for me. Because now usually when somebody Googles me or looks me up, you're going to find I'm a productivity coach and I've done all of these things. But at my core, I would rather not do a lot of the things. And I'm constantly having to, put structures, systems, mindsets that help me to do that. So that's who I am. You can find the rest of the cool stuff online.
What I love about you and what you're saying is the fact that you're saying the tools you implement are also there to help you.
Yes.
Right? Like
yes.
you're not saying I've arrived and I want
Go
to
work.
teach other people how to arrive.
No.
You're saying I'm using my tools and this is how they're working for me. And that's what I love about it. But then when you look back in your childhood, what is some of the things that you feel as a child sort of shaped your perspective on this productivity coach thing and, you know, what success really means to you?
I am a last born. I am my mom's and dad's youngest child. I grew up with an older brother. And now watching my second born and his first brother, I have a newfound respect and recognition of the audacity of last born children or second children, right? Because what actually happens is we come into the world and our elder siblings have figured life out.
Yeah.
And then we watch them and we kind of hack the system and we do things faster. And then we convince ourselves that we are cooler than them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like I came into the world with an elder brother who was figuring out a lot of things. And so my learning path was much faster. But then I also had his protection around me. So like I could go out and, you know, behave like I can beat boys or whatever.
Yeah.
But simply because I knew that I had my brother's backing. So I think that was one of the most significant things, the audacity of being a second born, because I had an older brother who really for a long time I was able to explore things because I knew that I always had somebody who backed me. My parents, both my parents were teachers. My dad was almost always the headmaster at every school that I went to.
Nice.
So you can imagine that there was like zero chance of me being, you know, naughty. But also my mom is like, I didn't mention her when I mentioned my mentors, but literally my mom set the foundation for the person that I am. Life happened. And I think that from dating, I wasn't always under my mom's roof because life was happening. But I think that my mom did such a good job in grounding me in the principles, right? Like even when I went through whatever I went through in life, I feel like I was so grounded and so rooted because my mom taught me things. So my family, my parents and my brother really grounded me and they gave me a lot of confidence. Life happened. There were things that then kind of forced me to grow up, to take responsibility and to realize that if it's supposed to be, if I want the life that I want, it's going to be up to me.
Yeah.
And to constantly go out and seek the things that I want. And, you know, like just I'm relentless when it comes, like if I want something, I am quite relentless about it and I'm going to get it. And so it was a combination of like a well-grounded foundational years with my parents and my brother, and then life happened like teens into early adulthood, which was like, oh, okay, I guess now we have to go out and get the life that we really want. So I think those would be the main things from like my childhood and how I grew up that shaped who I am.
That shaped you.
Yeah.
That's quite interesting. And it's incredible how you're saying, I think some of the things are always rooted in people, right? And you don't realize it. And for you to say a last born though, you don't even seem like a last born. I feel like last borns are not necessarily like they don't have structure. My sister's going to come for me. I feel like they don't really know what they want. They're sort of trying to figure themselves out, and they don't always want to be compared to their older siblings because they feel like the older siblings have set the benchmark, and the parents are always like, do you see what your sister's doing, or do you see what your brother is doing?
That's actually very true. But I think, like I said, right, like I was last born and I have the mindset of a last born. But life also happened at some point and I had to like literally
snap out of it. Yeah.
But even as I was coming here today, I also thought that I think that in so many ways, I kind of have a level of cushioning in my life that, you know, like I was telling you earlier on that I'm here right now, I'm here with my mom. And I have this thing that I always say to people, like, if I'm going to see my mom and you need me for adulting responsibilities, please don't. Because I'm with my mother. I'm just being a child. And a friend of mine last time says to me, you look so much softer when it's your mother, right? And so I think that it's an interesting thing where I know that I can go out in the world and I can be a goal-getter and I can do all of these things that I want to do. But in so many ways, I have structures and systems in my life where I know that, like, you know, I have my parents, I have my husband. I can go and try to conquer the world, and if it doesn't work out, I can always go home and just be Taffy. You know?
Yeah.
And whereas I think with firstborns have that pressure of like, you know, you're the role model, you have to get things done. I don't.
And you don't have an example. You don't
Exactly.
like, it's just figuring
but you
it
have
out.
people watching you. And I don't. I'm literally just like vibing, just doing
moving.
things that I like.
Yeah.
And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, I'm like, guys, just a girl.
I'm just a girl.
Just a girl.
Oh, she said it. You know what? When you just mentioned now the goal-getter, that's your stage name.
Yes.
I love your stage name. It doesn't say the goal setter, it says the goal-getter.
Oh, yes.
And I love it because, you know, one thing I've realized is at the beginning of the year, we always have New Year resolutions. You know, this is September and I'm trying to take some of them off. And we keep recycling this New Year resolutions over and over again, you know. So how does one move from that? First of all, I actually want to know what inspired your name.
Right.
And tell us, how does one move from just setting goals to actually getting the goals? Because,
I feel that it goes back to 20 something, a year or two after I finished uni. And I found myself in a place where I felt like, you know how we're almost always sold the dream of like, work hard in school, get good grades, and, you know, get the job and live the life. And I feel like for a long time I had been working towards that. Then I finished uni and then I had a job, which was a job that I really liked and I enjoyed. But I started to feel like I wasn't making a lot of progress. Like you said, year in, year out. This is the year that I'm going to get better with money. This is the year that I'm going to get closer to God. This is the year that I'm going to be fit. This is the year that I'm going to buy the car, and on and on and on. And then I was like, but wait, like year in, year out, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. But I noticed that there were people around me, people our age, who would, like, you would literally have a conversation with them. It's like you and I could sit here today and we have a conversation about, you know, something that we want to do. And I noticed that there were two groups of people. There were people who have these conversations on an ongoing basis and never actually do anything. Somehow in the back of my mind, Nike, I actually want to know your top 3 destinations. But
I'll tell you.
But like, I found that there are people who, you know, it's like, oh, this is the places that I want to go to. And this is the things that I want to do. And these are the things that I want to buy. And then everybody else goes home and goes back to what they've always done. And there are those people who the next time you meet them, they have started, they are consistent with it. They finished the thing. And so I say to myself, what do they know? What do they do? What's so different about them? And I threw myself into the personal development space. I learned a lot of things, but the thing that stood out a lot to me was just, number one, the clarity of people who do well in life have goals. A lot of us, we have wishes, we have resolutions, we have
Dreams.
vague things, right? But the people who get things have goals, and they're very clear goals, very smart goals. Their goals are specific, they are measurable. They really think about, is this achievable? They are relevant to who they are, and they are time bound, right? It's like, I'm going to do this at this point, right? So the first thing for me was just the idea of goals, and realizing that, like, we were never really taught how to set goals. We're told to be successful. We're told to, you know, take over the world. But nobody really helped us understand, how do we do that? So at first it was the idea of goals, setting goals. But then realizing that even when you set smart goals, if you don't do the things, you're never going to get the things, right? So the idea of goal getters for me was people who set goals, but who also do what it takes to get them. So that's pretty much what goal getter means to me. It means people who are clear on what they want, people who set goals, people who make plans, and people who work the plan. And I think fundamentally, that's what I think is what sets goal getters apart from everybody else. They're clear on what they want. They decide what will they do to get what they want, and they work the plan, no matter how they feel.
That's quite interesting but for me, guys, today I'm literally in a lecture room because I'm just here learning.
It was supposed to be a conversation, Naki.
I know it is, but then, I'm loving learning from you so much. I'm just thinking about it now, right? That how do you find the balance? Because I'm thinking of ideas are just a seed, right? But then execution is the harvesting, right? So, but then I'm looking at it as, how do I learn to find a balance between setting the right goals, right, that are realistic, but also goals that challenge me?
Right. So, realistic versus challenging. So, one of my favorite models of goal setting is smarter goal setting, right? And I think that there are two, the whole process really is very interesting because it asks you for the specificity of like, what is the specific thing that you want to do? I'm going to give you about 10 minutes to give me an example of a goal that we can practically work through as we talk about this. But firstly, it's the idea of like, what is the specific thing that you want to do? So now we're going to do a practical here. Can you think of a goal that you feel like you wanted to do it this year, or you've just been dragging it for a long time? Then we can work through it together. So it's not a theory session.
Okay. So it's a lot.
Just one.
One easy one.
Yes.
And it's, okay, I really want to go to the gym 3 times a week.
You want to go to the gym 3 times a week.
Whenever I take a break, I come back and I take a break from gym for a few weeks.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So here's the thing. I love the fact that you are clear on you want to go to the gym 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Most people just started, I want to be healthier. Right. I want to be healthier. A lot of people know that they want to lose weight, but many times it's just like, oh, I want to be healthier. I want my health and fitness to improve. What do you want? What are you trying to do? Right. So it's like, I want to lose weight. Right. So let's go with weight. I want to lose weight. How much weight are you trying to lose? Right. And already there, some people are like, because putting a number to it makes it
challenging,
a lot more challenging and a lot more real, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, specific action, what do we want? We want to lose weight. Okay, how much weight do we want to lose? Can we put a number to it, right? Then what's the timeline? So let's actually do this, Naki. Am I right in assuming you want to lose weight, or you just want to get fit?
I want to tone.
You want to tone.
Yeah.
How do we know that you are toned?
You see, I think for me, it's mainly I want to tone my legs.
You want to tone your legs.
Yeah.
Okay. So is it like
a little bit of muscle?
Okay.
Not too much as well.
Okay.
But just when I wear shorts, everybody's going to ask, do you go to the gym?
Okay. Okay, cool. So we're toning the legs to a specific. But how do we measure toning? Is it like the centimeters on the thighs?
No, I think it's the look. I don't know if there's a particular like centimeters. I think it's how you look, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I love that because it's vague enough. It's very interesting. So I'm gonna go back to the losing weight. Let's assume that one wants to lose weight, right? If one wants to lose weight, so I said like the challenge is give us a specific number and a timeline for how you want to do it. People be like, oh, I want to lose 30 kgs. Okay, cool. What's the timeline? 3 months. Are you losing 30 kgs in 3 months? So already putting a timeline to it begins to really help you think about, oh, okay, what is it going to take for me to do this thing, right? The A is for achievable, which is now a question of what is it going to take for you to lose 30 kgs in 3 months? Is it achievable? Yes. But what is it going to take you to be able to do that? Right? It's going to be a strong combination of exercise, of diet, and all the things that need to go in there. Right? So your question was, how do I balance between realistic and challenging?
Yeah.
And I find that when you really begin to put, like the specific actions, the numbers to it, the timelines to it, it begins to get interesting. What you mentioned, which is you want to go to the gym 3 times a week. That's an even better thing because for a lot of people, we would then move from you want to lose this many kgs in 3 months. Then we consult somebody who is in the fitness space and they're like, oh, okay. If you want, and I've had this conversation with my fitness trainer where I'm like, I want to lose this much or I want to lose so many centimeters in my tummy area, which is what I'm currently working on. And he's like, okay, if you want to do it in 12 weeks, this is what it's going to take, right? And when we started, it's a weird thing, right? Because I hate abs workouts, but I'm trying to turn my abs area, right? And so when we started, he would give me ab workouts and I'd fight him. And then when we had a 12 weeks check-in, he was like, you fight me when it comes to abs, right? So then I had to make a decision to say, if this is what I really want, I'm going to have to push through, you know? So these days I fight him about a lot of things, but never abs workouts. So when he gives me an ab thing, I'm just like, let's go. Let's push through it, right? Yeah. And so it's the realistic bit for me is, I think that when we're being honest to ourselves, the things we really want in their most natural state are already challenging for us. The realistic bit is, it becomes into question when we really start thinking about the price of what is it going to take for me to create the time, the money, and the energy to do this thing. That's when, you know, realistic gets shaky. Yeah. And sometimes when I'm coaching people, they tell me their goals. I'm like, I never tell you that your goal is unrealistic. Yeah. When it's time to work the plan,
that's when you start seeing it.
Your plan will tell you that this is actually unrealistic, right? Yeah. So for you going 3 times to the gym, what is the biggest hurdle?
I think for me, it's work. Just the fact that I work long hours, right? Okay. And again, I think sometimes it's just commitment. Like if I come from a holiday or a vacation, I'm like, I'm still trying to come out of vacation mode.
So you're not working out during your vacations?
No. It's a break from work. All work.
No judgment. No judgment, because just this morning I was on Instagram and I was like, guys, I'm on leave. I'm supposed to be sleeping in. My trainer is in my inbox. Should I just block him? But one of my personal things is I hate starting over. The pain, you know, because when you're going to the gym consistently and then you stop, and when you go, all of a sudden you're having to restart all the systems.
It feels like that.
And then your body is also like, oh, wait, we are back.
Where have you been?
You are so all over again. So for me, sometimes my consistency is just fueled by, I can't start over. So I'm just going to do whatever it takes. Today I worked out at midday, like literally at 12. I was like to my mom, I'm going to have to go and see Naki at 3. So I need to put this workout in. Begrudgingly, but I did it. Did it. And so here's the thing. People who are consistent, people who are successful, people who have the results that we want, tend to do too much. We love people's results.
Yes.
But when we ask them how they do it, half the time we're like, that's too much. No. It's not that deep. Like, no. Right?
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think for me, it also touches to careers, right? It's the same with careers. Like sometimes when you see, I think with content creation as well, when you see the amount of work that people actually put, then you realize that, no, man, I'm not working. You know, and that's why this person is getting the amount of results that they're getting. So sometimes I think realistic goals are also determined by your intention. Why are you doing it? Are you trying to please people? Are you just trying to look a certain way so that people can notice you? And when you look at that, you set unrealistic goals because you're looking at you arriving. You're not really processing the journey. You know, and I'm starting to learn that as well, that sometimes we don't process the journey. We're just looking at the destination. We're like, I must get there. You don't think about how, you don't think about why you're even doing it. And I love when you mention consistency, because part of success, part of growth, part of productivity is being consistently productive. But no, wait, but now I'm thinking about it. Consistently productive. But being consistently productive, because I struggle with resting. I can rest mentally, but physically, whenever I sit down and do nothing, I feel like I'm wasting my time. I think of what's the next thing I can do. Yesterday, it was literally at 11 p.m. I had slept around 10 p.m. My mind thought of something and I was like, wait, I need to do this. And then I wake up and I write it down. How do you rest and still know that you can be productive after resting?
Unpopular opinion. A lot of us who don't know how to rest are not very productive. Because
Preach to me.
Because the thing that you wanted to do at 11 p.m., when should you have done it?
Yeah, I should have done it in the afternoon.
And what did you do?
Then my mind thought of it at 11 p.m.
Right?
Yeah.
I am in an interesting period in my life where I think 3 years ago I decided that I want a life of ease. But I'm realizing that ease requires a lot more structure than the hustle.
Yeah.
Right? So what that means is you have to be very organized, right? Yesterday, literally on my way to the airport, a friend of mine was taking me to the airport, and I said to her, in fact, I had been procrastinating on a report. Listen, I told you guys I'm a productivity coach, but sleepy girl in a busybody. I had a report that I was supposed to do, and reports are the bane of my life. I struggle with reports. And I had a report that I had been working on casually, working on deprioritizing for everything else that's happening in my busy life. But when I decided that I'm coming on this trip, I decided I'm not bringing my laptop.
Nice.
And then I had to say to myself, what are the things that you do not have the privilege of saying I'm on holiday and I left my laptop? And that report was one of those things. And I ended up doing it. I literally finished that report at like 6:45 a.m. yesterday because that's how devoted I was to not bringing my laptop so that I can rest on this trip. Right. So the first thing for me is a lot of our inability to rest is rooted in our lack of structures and systems because we are not doing things when we should be doing them. Right. And so leaning into rest and ease for me has required me to be highly structured. It has required me to be more structured than I was when I was hustling. Because when you're hustling, you can always do things last minute. If I was in my hustle mode, I would have just carried my laptop and it's like a normal thing, right? I carry it. I do that report whenever the client asks for it. I do it last minute. But if you begin to build structures in your life where you schedule things and you know when you should be doing things, where you push yourself through procrastination and, not doing things when you're supposed to do them, it's a bit easier to rest. But I also think that personally for me, one of the things that has made rest and ease for me has been feeling like I no longer have to prove or perform.
Tell me more about that.
So I moved to Zambia 10 years ago, almost 11 now, to join team in Zambia. And for one reason or the other, I almost always felt like I had to prove myself. I had to perform to stand out. So I'm literally moving into a new country. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows what I've done before. And so I come in. I'm a rookie. I'm young. I was 24 when I moved to Zambia. So I was young. I was just new, like literally new to the market. Nobody knew me, right? And the level at which I worked back then required me to work, Naki. I said yes to everything, right? I was building, I was starting from the start. People would be like, Taffy, can you? And I'd be like, yes. Taffy, yes. I said yes to everything. And recently I've now had to say to myself, Taffy, you have grown. You have built a name for yourself. You've built a level of credibility.
Yes.
If you are not careful, you are going to start compromising everything you have built because you are not resting well enough, right? So it's sometimes it's a question of what are you trying to build? Sometimes we are so busy chasing things that we already have. Right? You're so busy chasing things that you already have. And for me in this season, it's been able to say to myself, I have a good portfolio of clients. My work is strengthening my systems and processes so that I can better serve those clients. I'm having to say no to opportunities because otherwise I'm going to overwhelm myself. A few weeks ago, thankfully had a brilliant opportunity because I'd kind of double booked a day.
Yeah.
I had agreed to speak somewhere, and then I had agreed to do a training for other people.
Yeah.
And for me, that was that reminder to say, Taffy, if you don't slow down, you're going to start compromising all the things that you have built in your life. So the ability to rest sometimes is also being able to ask yourself, Naki, what are you trying to achieve with all this busyness? What are you chasing? And are you sure that you don't have it? Sometimes you're so busy doing all the things, but not the things that we should be doing. Because the thing that's going to take your career to the next level many times is rooted in your current job.
Yeah.
But rather than doing our current job, we'd rather be, promoting ourselves, meeting other people, chasing the next thing. Took me a long time, but now I realize that the better that I do with little in my life, the better that I serve fewer people, then the more opportunities that I have to do and get what I want. But if I try to do too much for too many people, I'm doing a shoddy job for a lot of people who are going to be annoyed.
And you might end up losing all of them. Do you know what I think, right? I really think these days it's also a lot of us. I want to say us because I don't want to point fingers at anybody, seeking validation.
Girl.
And if people haven't validated me, if I haven't met the definition for success that is on social media or that is with certain people that I consider successful, then I haven't gotten there, right? And I think for me, that's what I try to emphasize, that we each have different purpose, different journeys. And sometimes you're too busy chasing other people's purpose that you leave yours unattended. And by the time you wake up, you've achieved nothing.
Because you can't beat them at their purpose.
You can't. You can't.
And one of the things that I think also makes our life in this day and age complex is social media. My God. We see so much.
A lot.
We see so much of everybody's life.
You do.
We see
really
too much of each other's lives.
I always say this. To be honest, social media has its benefits. I love social media for the benefits it comes with, but it also has brought in a lot of, I think it's affecting people, like in the sense that people don't take time to clap for themselves. People don't take time to actually say, I've achieved, I've done well, I need a break. They don't. They're literally always doing. Like, I love the other episode I actually had. This lady said, we are human beings, not human doing, because we spend so much time doing that we actually never spend time being the person, so it's a lot. And I mean, social media, I could have a whole episode on
it. When you have it, I want to listen to it. One of my current things that I even say to myself is, Taffy, sit with it. To your point of validation, I think I say to myself, sit with it for the good stuff.
Yeah.
And for the hard stuff, right? Because to your point, I think we've become so used to showing the things that we have done that we don't catch up with ourselves, right? Because I do a thing, I put it on social media, people like it, but some people don't like it, and we notice that some people didn't like it, and then we begin to question it.
Yes,
right? Like it's a weird thing.
It's really a weird thing, but I think it's got to do with people's personalities, guys. I don't know. You guys can comment in the comment section, right? But I think it's got to do with people's. I don't think you can teach people to unlearn overlooking when people dislike or when people don't like what they do.
No,
can you?
So here's my thing. I think that a lot of that is rooted in our inability to validate ourselves. We want other people to do and give us what we will not give ourselves.
Insecurities.
We are not sitting still and recognizing what we have done because we are so excited to post it online.
Yeah.
But you know what that does? It's like it's a quick dopamine rush.
It is.
Right? But then you do it, you post it, they clap, they like, they comment, they share.
You come back.
And then you come back because you haven't sat with it. Right? The times that we take stock of who we have become in our lives, we move differently. because we now know who we are.
I agree.
Right? I've had times, like I was saying to you, I've had so many times that I've had to sit with myself and say, Taffy, this is who you now are. And you can chill on certain things. You know what I mean? Like,
I love that aspect, actually.
Yeah.
Because you know what? It's speaking into... So here's the thing. I always say that when you're starting out, and this is from a career perspective, when you're starting out, right, you need to put in the work.
of course.
You're going to put in those late nights. You're going to do the most, right? But then you need to get to a point where you start knowing your worth. When you start knowing your value, then you start putting a tag on yourself. And you say, now, this is what I can take. This is what I can't take.
And saying that price with your chest and then closing your mouth soon after.
They have to choose.
Because, no, Naki, I wish, this one, I wish it was simple. Whew. Especially when you're an entrepreneur or you're doing things that don't have a lot of. So, my friend Ruth runs a manufacturing company. She produces this lovely Chitenge bags and furniture. And we were having a conversation. And I was saying to her, one of the things that had me curious about Ruth when we first met, that was 2017. And Ruth made these lovely dresses, which she was selling for, I think it was 675 kwacha.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, this girl sells dresses for how much?
Yeah.
And to today, even this morning, I told her that was one of the things that drew me to her. Because I was like, oh, wow, sis knows her worth and she's going to charge it, right? But over the years, even for me in my personal journey, I have, particularly in my line of work, because I don't have raw materials. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't
service.
I don't have raw materials.
Yeah.
The raw materials is this. It's what I know. It's my perspective. It's the value that I bring, right? And so when we get to this conversation of knowing your worth and charging your worth, and like I said, saying it with your chest and closing your mouth. Because many times we start to discount ourselves. We start to negotiate before we've even told the client a figure. And when the client goes quiet, either because they are checking their budget or whatever, you are so tempted to come back and say,
Actually,
do you know what I mean?
10% reduction.
I am in the season of saying it with my chest and closing my mouth.
I agree with you. I honestly agree. I think honestly, people need to, if you can't afford, then move on. Don't try to make someone discount their worth, right? Like, I think it's quite unfair. I've been a victim. I've also been a
perpetrator.
Yes, a perpetrator. I've been on both ends. But then, I'm learning that when someone says this is what my price is, it's because they've looked at everything else and this is where they really believe they're at. It's either you support or you say, I can't afford you, not you're too expensive, because there's a difference.
My new thing is I'm going to have to save up for that. That's what I now say, because it's also recognizing that if I come to you, just earlier this week, I saw this girl who makes these lovely bags and I DM'd her. I was like, oh my God, this is so lovely. She told me the price and I was like, yeah, I'm not ready to spend that much on this season. And so I've learned to say to myself, I'm going to have to save for that because I can't afford. It's not something wrong with your pricing.
It's
I'm
me
the
at
one
the moment.
who can't afford. My budget in this season, my priorities in this season don't allow me to do this thing. And being able to also trust that even when you're talking to a potential client, when they come back hoping that they have the wisdom to say to you that they don't have the budget for it. But some people are also going to just say things, sideways to you.
Will.
And getting to a place where you're like, well, their budget and my standards are not aligned in this season.
They're not aligned.
We move.
I agree. But also another thing I wanted us to touch on, we could sit here and talk all day, as you can see. Another thing I wanted us to touch on, right, is the fact that we hear a lot of success stories. Like you said earlier, we hear a lot of you need to be successful, never how to be successful. We hear a lot of success stories, but not necessarily journeys to failure. Not that you stay there in your failure place, but how you failed in your journey to get to where you're at now. So from your end, what are some of your experiences of failure that made you the Taffy we see today?
Right. When I onboard my one-on-one coaching clients, I say to them, some of our best growth happens when the plan doesn't work. And I genuinely believe that with my heart. When the thing we've always done doesn't work, we have to figure out how to do things differently. So some of our best growth happens when the plan doesn't work. I have had my fair share of failures in my life, but sometimes I feel like I've probably developed an unhealthy habit of just... But I think 3 sort of failures stand out for me. Number 1, if you've watched my TED Talk, in the very first sentence, I admit that in my first semester, I failed. I had 1 distinction, 3, whatever grade is just above pass, and 2 fails. I failed dismally. But that quickly taught me that I can't keep operating at the level that I had operated in high school and that had gotten me through there. I had to make quick adjustments to my life. Fortunately or unfortunately, I was a scholarship student, right? So where I might have been able to go back to my parents and pull my, last born thing, I couldn't do that because I was on a scholarship to a corporate organization. So that made me quickly get into, formation and keep moving. I have failed job interviews. My last job interview, I interviewed with one of the big 4 audit firms, and I didn't get that job. And I remember in that interview, the partner said to me, "You're not doing yourself any favors here," which in retrospect was because I didn't really want that job, to be honest. I just moved to Zambia and I loved the work that I was doing at Alchemy Women in Leadership where I was working. And then a friend of mine was like, "Oh, these guys are looking for a job." And the right thing to do was if I could get like a fancy job to get it. But my heart wasn't in it. And I think when this partner was interviewing me, I was answering honestly from my heart and not the way I should have been answered.
Yeah.
But that helped me to stay where I was, right, and be able to move on with that. When I think of the work that I do with Goal Getter, I have had some of my products or events flop terribly.
Sure.
I host vision board parties, and I remember this one time I advertised it and I booked a venue and nobody came. No one.
No way.
No one.
Taffy.
No one showed up.
How did you recover from that?
It was very complex because I remember I talked to 2 people on that day. One, I talked to my friend Ruth, and she was, I don't know what we were going through in that season. And she was very, and I think that's also the nature of our friendship. We're very problem solving. It's like, okay, what's happening? How do we fix it? And I was like, not today. So she went straight into like the problem solving. And I was like, no, that's not
don't need that today.
But it's interesting also because I took it to the 2 people in my life who I knew were going to be very much like, well, so what are we going to do? What did you not do well? Yada, 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 yada. Which they did. But we had to have a conversation later on of like, no, what, I needed a little bit of comfort in that season. But the thing that I will always tell you, and I was saying this to a friend the other day, that I have gotten to a place where I'm okay with saying this is not working. And I was saying to my friend that I have a little thing that I do with my team at TLC. I run 2 businesses, Goal Getter and Training Leaders Consortium. TLC is where we work mostly with corporates. Goal Getter is where I work mostly with individuals. Yeah. So in our team at TLC, everybody compliments me. I'm just like, just send money. Like, don't compliment me, just send money, right? And I was saying the other day that I've had seasons in my life where I felt like I wasn't earning enough for the work that I was doing. I felt like I'm working so hard, but I'm not making enough money. Yeah. And some people will obviously go to, just be grateful for what you have. At least you love what I'm not the one. I'm going to go to God and be like, yo,
we're not doing what we're supposed to do.
I work hard. I work hard. I remember when I finished my MBA, I sat in this place where I felt like my classmates who were in the corporate world would either get a promotion because they'd finished the MBA and their corporates would recognize that, or they would get headhunted by somebody else. But because of the way the corporate world is structured, they were going to get a raise. Yeah. And I was like, to God, so
where do I stand?
Right? I'm not going to wake up and just say to my corporate clients, I now have an MBA, I'm increasing the price. But the thing that I've learned that in every season that I felt frustrated, it's usually because something is failing. It might not be like a big event where I can say I failed on this day. But in my journey, many times it's just been an accumulation of things not going the way that I want, leading me to a place of frustration where then I'm either like, well, something needs to change, or I'm like literally to God, like that last one behavior of like, we said this was the purpose, this was the mission, I'm doing the thing. How do I get what I want? And that has always led me to places where I either introduce new products, I introduce new services, I really think about it. When I finished my MBA, that's when we launched our team alignment service in TLC. And that opened a lot of doors for us, right? Because realizing that in a lot of organizations, people just struggle because people don't have a good grasp of what is the vision of this organization? How are we changing the world? What am I responsible for? How do I fit into these other departments? How do we all work together? Right. So because I had that frustration of like, we finished this MBA, what are we going to do differently? And when I reflected on it, I was like, okay, so what did we learn in the MBA? What are the insights that we have, and how do we align all of that? There's a time that I was really feeling that way again within Goal Getter. And I was like, to God, this one-on-one coaching thing is not working. It's not giving me the kind of money that I was expecting. How do we go about it? And that's when I ended up creating the Goal Getter Productivity Bootcamp, which is sort of like my group coaching program. So it's always been the moments. I might not have like big bang fell seasons, but what I will say is when you find yourself in a season of frustration, that likely means that something is not working out the way that you wanted. Lean into it. Analyze what you're not getting, analyze what you were hoping to get, and then look at the process and decide, what is it that I actually want, and what do I need to change to get the results that I want? So some of our best growth happens when the plan doesn't work, and then we rework the plan to get what we wanted.
I love it. You have an incredible journey, and you always have a way to make sure that you come back to productivity, which is quite incredible. Like just listening to you, I'm like, wow, those are some of the things that a lot of people need to learn, because normally when we fail, right, we are done. It's, to me, failing, and that's not to me directly, but to some people, failing means I'm not going to do it again. Right. It's not for me. And that's what people don't realize, that failing at something, or something you think God actually asked you to do or placed you in, doesn't necessarily mean it's not purpose, doesn't necessarily mean it's not for you. Sometimes there is the learning in the failing, and what you need to do is bounce back, But lastly for me, lastly this time, there is, when we look at all that we've been saying, right, execution is definitely the thing, right? It's harvesting time. It's what we need for us to actually achieve our goals, right? But I've noticed that networking is a game changer. For me, I've noticed, maybe because I'm in consulting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Like I feel when you've got the right networks, when you have the right people around you, not people that only inspire you, but people that support you and help you grow, then it makes it easier for you to know what to do, what not to do. It's like the firstborn, lastborn thing, right? It's almost like they're the firstborn. They've already done it. So they've sort of paved way for you. And now you're learning from them on what should I do better? What shouldn't I do? And it also just helps you to access other people you wouldn't have accessed on your own. Have you seen networking help you?
Oh, yes. I mean, one of the things with me is almost, I feel like I can trace most of my jobs to individuals who recommended me. Almost all my jobs go back to an individual, like literally off the top of my head. I can tell you that I'm here because, yes, I now have some repeat clients, but my entry into organizations, there was a human being who literally recommended me and mentioned my name and, just vouched for me to get in there. my approach to networking is I'm one of those people who, when I'm not working, I don't want to leave my house. Like, I don't want to leave my house. Like me at peak, I get to my house on Friday. I go to church on Sabbath, and then I'll come back out on Monday morning. Right. But I believe I can't remember exactly where I learned about this, but somebody was talking about, like, there's a hunter mentality and a farmer mentality. A hunter is somebody who goes out every day and they are looking for their next meal. Right? A farmer is somebody who goes through the process, like you were saying. This is my farm. This is how much I need for the long term. I go through seasons. I go through the planting season, nurturing the plant, harvest, and there is when we harvest, we have harvested enough to carry us through to the next season. I believe that I have a farmer mentality. Many times when I meet people, I'm just very interested in you as an individual. If you run a business, then I want to know what I can do for your team. But I'm not looking for a job. I'm curious about what's happening on your team. What are the challenges your people are facing? How can I help you overcome those challenges? My friends are always laughing at me because once upon a time, somebody called me high maintenance. Somebody was introducing me to a new mutual connection, and they're like, "This is Taffy. She's high maintenance." I caught feelings for a moment, but then I remembered that actually I am a depth person. I struggle in shallowness.
Ooh, me too.
Right. So if we are connecting, it's gonna be going deep. It's gonna be, what are you trying to achieve in your life? How are you doing it? What's happening in your life? How do you know what I mean? And so,
like, what am I gonna get out of this conversation? You know, not even from a material perspective, but from an intellectual perspective.
Yes, right?
Yeah.
How can I help you? How can you help me? So I find that, and what then tends to happen is, because I'm so intense and I'm so deep, I feel like sometimes I scare people away, and I have people who like love me from a distance because once you come close, I'm going to want to go deep. But it's also just really been so... Understand and honor yourself. I think that sometimes when people go on networking, they feel like they must do what everybody else does. I have a few people who I know who literally know everybody around town, and they are loved by everybody around town. And I've had moments where I question myself. I sometimes look at certain events happening in Lusaka and I'm like, why am I not there? And I'm like, Taffy, actually, you know, if they invited you, you're going to be stressed and trying to find a way of how you're not going to go. So honoring the way that you're wired, created, and prefer to live life. I don't do a lot of events, but the few events that I go to, I connect with one or two people. I build deep relationships with those people. So honor the way that you are wired, right? Secondly, give value to people. And this is why I am strong on people understanding, what do you do, right? One of my mentors, I mentioned it earlier on, Titi, taught me the concept of work, right? Which is, when I was moving to Zambia, she says to me, I said, oh, I don't know if I'm going to find a job. And she said, well, what's your work? And I told her my job title, and she says, no, what do you do? What work do you do? What problems do you solve for people? What solutions do you have? When you understand the work you do, the problems you solve, the solutions you have, you can walk into any room and find work. Do you understand?
I totally understand it. So I've experienced it myself.
Right?
Yeah.
So my approach to networking is finding people who I can help solve their problems that are in line with my work, or who I can connect with somebody who can solve their most burning problems, right? And what then happens along the way is that the more that I help people, the more people vouch for me because I do a good job at what I do, right? So it's also that thing. But I like to say that I may lack things in my life, but I'll never lack people for a season.
Incredible.
Because at every turn of my life, Naki, whatever has been happening in my life, right now after this meeting, I'm meeting somebody who I've never met in person. A mutual friend introduced us. This person has been working on my brand Taffy.
Oh, nice.
The level of ideas that Chris has for Goal Getter has just been wow.
Mind blowing.
Listen, in the next 12 months, there's going to be a level up in Taffy. There's going to be an articulation of my messaging, my work, my mission. And that's because a friend introduced me to somebody who is so invested in articulating what I do and connecting me to the right people. It always goes back to people at every level that I've advanced. When I'm struggling to figure out this client, there's this thing happening, there's this thing. I have a friend who I literally called a few weeks ago. I was like, listen, you remember how we said we wanted clients at a certain level? It's happening, but now I'm conflicted because I have 3 companies in the same industry wanting to work with me. And I don't know how to navigate that. And he literally, on a phone call, literally just said, no, this is not a real concern. This is how you navigate this. It always goes back to people.
Yeah. I agree.
Always goes back.
You can't succeed without community. Like you can't succeed solo. And I've learned that you make networks not only when you need them, you know, because when you start trying to contact people, when you need a job, when you need help, then, I mean, again, like you're saying, for me, I prefer deep-rooted conversations, right? So if you're just coming and you're saying, I need a job or I need you to work with my brand, I want to know why. Does it even align to my values? I don't know who you are. I don't know what you're all about. I don't know what your value is. So it's important when you always have that 1-minute pitch, right? Know yourself, know your value, know what you're all about. Not when someone asks you, what do you do? And you actually have no idea what to say you do because now you're stuck and now you feel, networking is not for me. That's because you actually haven't understood what you have to offer.
Yes.
Right? So I totally agree with what you're saying. And it's been an exciting, amazing, fulfilling episode full of a lot of learning. And I think we've got a lot of notes to go and reread and apply. You know, I love that it was very practical. So thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
I mean, I wish we could keep you here for another 2 hours, but we have to end. We have to end. Thank you so much, Taffy. It was incredible, amazing having you.
Thank you so much for having me, Naki. I'm excited. I'm excited. I really think that you're doing something impeccable. You are, and I love the diversity of, you know, all of the different things that you touch on your podcast. I think that intentionality to, you know, attend to the different elements of people's lives. So, I mean it when I say it was an honor for me to be here. Like you said, I'm a bit intentional about where I go and when I lend my voice. So yeah, it was nice. It was nice being here. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. And to our amazing viewers, thank you so much. Please like, share, and comment. Please comment. And also follow Taffy on, which socials are you on?
I give the most on Instagram. My handle is that girl get a girl. That's where I'm most active. On LinkedIn, I'm Tafadzwa Bete Sasa.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.